Oh, there it is. Okay.
Say hi, you two.
Oh, that's not how I wanted it to go. Ah, okay. Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Hannah Brenner, and 4 days ago, I had a crisis. As I was presenting my 13-page, 25-minute speech to some of my peers, I realized I hated my project. I mean, I really was not happy with what I was presenting. So I freaked out, because I wasn't about to throw away the paper I'd been slaving over for 2 weeks trying to finish, only to realize that I loathed the words I was reading. But I knew I wasn't about to present something in front of a room full of people that I wasn't proud of. I wanted to start over. I confided in Jackie, my PL, that I wasn't happy, and she advised me to go sit somewhere by myself for an hour, away from my computer, and distract myself. Maybe I would realize that I liked my project after all, but somehow I didn't think that would happen. I was worried about the utter lack of time there was to come up with a whole new project, but I stubbornly obliged and did what I always do when I needed to think. I listened to music. But now I needed to really think, so I put on my favorite album, one I reserve for only times when I'm dedicated to listening to the whole thing, times when I need to be inspired, times when I was homesick in Thailand and didn't think I could last 4 more months away from home, and when I thought I couldn't stand 1 more day of teaching in India. Some of you may have heard of it, but many of you probably haven't. In the Airplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel. This 1998 album, created by the indie band of the century, follows the themes of love, hate, reincarnation, sex, violence, religion, and Frank and more. It's deep and complex, and you have to really listen if you want to get the full meaning out of it. But once you do, it's incredible and beautiful. As I was sitting and singing along, I started noticing that the lyrics were taking on a new meaning, one that reflected my life over the past 7 months. But maybe I was reading too much into this. After all, I was grappling for an idea for a new project. But no, the words from the 3rd track with the same name as the album seemed to be directly linked to my TBB experience, and it was exactly what I was looking for. Besides the title being a perfect example of all the travel we've done over the past 7 months, 21 times in an airplane to be exact, it's a more poetic, more metaphorical version of what I wanted to say and communicate through my presentation of learning. And Jeff Mangum had said it all for me 18 years earlier. So here's my line-by-line interpretation of In the Airplane Over the Sea. What a beautiful face I have found in this place that is circling all around the sun. Back a long time ago, before TBB began, I had dreams of changing the world and making a lasting change on the communities I was in. My ambitions were high, as I decided I would set out and take a year of my life to do something meaningful. I saw myself as a beautiful face, in the sense that I was going to be a savior for people on the other side of the world needed. I was the person who could make change on Earth happen. What a beautiful dream that could flash on the screen. It was only a flash on the screen that allowed me to think this way, a quick moment in my life. As soon as we landed in Ecuador and started learning about all the problems in the world and all the complicated solutions to try and fix things, I knew that this beautiful dream that I had wouldn't last for long. And I came to the realization that maybe I wasn't going to do all of the great things that I'd once thought about. In a blink of an eye and be gone from me, soft and sweet, let me hold it close and keep it here with me. I was upset at first that my dreams of changing the world were gone in the blink of an eye, that it was only a fleeting moment in the scheme of things. I saw how bad volunteering can turn communities into shows for foreigners, something we saw in the Elephant Village in Thailand. Whereas before this year, I would have eagerly encouraged people to travel abroad and work in a school or an orphanage, I now see that having volunteers teach English isn't what a school needs when they can barely afford chalk. And connecting with children for a week and then leaving could pin them with even more abandonment issues than they already had. I'm a high school graduate with absolutely no teaching skills. My only qualification is a language that even I don't have a full mastery of yet. How am I expected to teach math when I can't count to 10 in Hindi and these kids are supposed to learn multiplication in English? It doesn't make sense. The system is flawed, and I learned a valuable lesson in that you can't always have a positive impact on the places you go. And I was upset by this realization. But I later realized it was much sweeter to know the truth and to think about the full implications of my actions instead of just living in ignorance. And one day we will die and our ashes will fly from the airplane over the sea. Maybe dying isn't the right word for my metaphor, so let's use leaving instead. We knew at the beginning of each country that one day, inevitably, we would have to leave our host communities and families behind. And we did. We had to pack up our things and say goodbye to what had been our home for 5 weeks. Over and over again, we did this. There were promises of staying in touch. Facebook and email helped us do that. But it's not about what we're going to say, it's about what we did while we were there. We won't always be around, but it's important to leave our ashes, our mark on the places we've been. We try to leave positive ashes, like new saplings peeking out of the ground in Ecuador, an empty field once overflowing with rice that we helped harvest in Thailand. It happened, though, that we also left something much less than what we had hoped for. We left money, American dollars, in Cambodia, where almost 90% of revenue from Angkor Wat goes to foreign companies, when Siem Reap is the second poorest province in the country. And we left our confused students in India, who we had no way to explain to why we were only able to stay for a short while, and why we didn't deserve the love they gave us. But for now, we are young, and let us lay in the sun and count every beautiful thing we can see. Before I left for TBB, I was told that this time in my life was perfect for taking a gap year, because when else would I have the time and the means to take a year off from everything and travel the world? Never, so I should do it now. And that's exactly why I'm here today, talking to you about my gap year, because I'm young, for now, and I needed time to find myself and discover more about the world than just the minuscule place I take up in it. I needed to take this time, this year, and see all the beautiful things in the world. I can't count them all out, like this line suggests, but there is so much beauty and wonder that I think everyone needs to take the time to see. There's Machu Picchu, Angkor Wat, the Taj Mahal, but there's also the smaller beauties. There's the sound of laughter and love after our neighborhood birthday party in Ecuador, where no language communication was needed to display our happiness. Our host mom crying when we left Thailand. Hope in the face of every young Cambodian, because there are no old ones left. Seeing so many smart girls in my class in India, and knowing they wanted to stay in school, even if they weren't favored. And the community health workers in South Africa, who always have a smile, despite all the pain they see, because they know that life will go on, and they tell us how lucky we are to live in this world. Love to be in the arms of all I'm keeping here with me. Every host family I lived with, I felt like part of a family. It made every country easier, I think, to be able to feel like a part of something. I don't know what I would have done without feeling a little bit of home in every family I was with. And I'll always keep them with me. Every bit of love and support that they gave me will stay in my memory as I go through my life. But even with the love of my host families, the friends I've made on this trip will also be kept with me for a long time. Through thick and thin, we've seen and done it all, and I'll always carry the memories of us all together, because it's hard to forget something that we've all been through. What a curious life we have found here tonight. At first glance, this line seems pretty self-explanatory. We as TBBers often do have very curious and crazy lives. But it's also curious in the sense that we learn a lot about development and volunteerism, but yet we also perpetuate the things we are trying to stop. Shouldn't we, the small minority who are aware of the consequences of our actions, be the ones who do something to try and change the norm? It's extremely curious to me that we are the ones who are learning about what it means to be an agent of change in the world, but we also take part in the activities that sometimes move us backwards. It makes me question if we can actually put into action and take parts in the things we preach, or if we are just going to keep taking part in a system that doesn't work. There's music that sounds from the street. Once when we were in India, my roommate and I were being kept awake late one night. Well, late for us, so I think around 9 p.m., by this horribly loud music. Drums kept beating, and there was lots of yelling and singing in a language that we couldn't understand. We got out of bed and asked our family what was happening. Oh, they replied, it's a Sikh holiday, and our neighbors are celebrating. Do you want to go? Now, I know absolutely nothing about the Sikh religion, except that a very small percentage of Indians are Sikh. But never wanting to miss out on an adventure, we accepted the invitation and walked outside, only to see that less than a block away, there was a huge party happening. There was a bonfire in the middle of the streets and people dancing all around it. As we walked up, we were immediately grabbed by 2 women and welcomed into the circle. We followed their quick feet and elegant hands as we tried to mimic their Bollywood-style dance, occasionally having them move out of the way for a passing car. After a while, they gave us cookies and chai, and we danced. And after a while, we got tired and said our Hindi thank yous before heading back to bed. The next day, I sort of forgot about it, and I don't think I ever brought the story up to anyone again. But now that I remember it, I'll always remember the music that sounded from the street that one night in Jaipur. There are lights in the clouds. Again, this line draws a specific memory for me. I immediately remembered the first night of our Machu Picchu hike, when we were camped on a beautiful glacier. Really one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. It was night, and we were all exhausted, cold, and sore from our uphill trek just in the snow just hours before. But as I looked up, about ready to pass out in my tent, I saw the most stars I've ever seen in my life. The sky was full of them, some bright, some faint, but they filled the night air around the glacier and made the snow around our feet glow bright white. I've never seen anything quite like that scene, and I've never braced the cold for as long as we did that night to look at the lights in the clouds and make the moment of beauty last for a little bit longer. Anna's ghost all around. Hear her voice as it's rolling and ringing through me, soft and sweet. See how the notes all bend and reach above the trees. In its original meaning, this line is referring to Anne Frank and the Holocaust. But when I apply this to TBB, it relates to the Cambodian Genocide by the Khmer Rouge. In just 4 short years during the 1970s, over 20% of Cambodia's population was killed. All intellectuals were murdered by the Khmer Rouge soldiers, and anyone who questioned the new communist government would be too. Until I went on TBB, I had no idea about this world event. Even though it took place during the same time as the Vietnam War and the US was involved, I never learned anything about it in school. When we were at the killing fields, where a majority of the murders took place, I saw the full effect the genocide could have as I broke down in tears. The Khmer soldiers used to blare loud music from speakers while they would kill the prisoners so that other people in the camp wouldn't hear their screams. When we were at the killing fields, we saw the tree where these speakers hung from, right in front of one of the many mass graves. Hearing the notes all bend and reach above the trees at the killing fields meant death. But now it can mean hope for Cambodians who need the world to know about the atrocities that took place there. Without Anne Frank, a lot of the Holocaust might have been forgotten or lost. But because of her and her diary, we remember the stories and the peoples whose lives it affected. Now, we must hear the voices of those who passed because of another genocide and not let the world forget them. Now how I remember you, how I would push my fingers through your mouth to make those muscles move that made your voice so smooth and sweet. It's no secret that our group had their problems. We have poor communication, lots of passive aggressiveness, and even a few personality clashes. And as with every group, there was also a fair share of gossiping and talking behind backs. I know I took part in it, and I'm sure I was the subject of conversations as well. But face to face, the issues would hide themselves away. We would, as this line suggests, push our fingers through others' mouths to hear the words that we wanted to. Whether we would try to push aside our differences and say only things that would be smooth and sweet, or we would pick and choose what words we heard so that we could only hear what our biases wanted us to, it was bad. We had our issues, and maybe some things were left unresolved. But I know I at least learned a valuable lesson about myself and others that I never would have before. I learned that I work to see the best in people. I like to hear the smooth and the sweet, even if it's forced out. But I know that through our ups and downs, the gossip and the group bonding, and the separation and the coming together, we have all been through this together. And no amount of words will ever change the people that made these experiences what they were. And now we keep where we don't know. All secrets sleep in winter clothes. I can already see what it's going to be like at home. People asking me questions about my gap year, and me giving an answer with my authoritative tone of voice and now extensive, if not slightly pretentious, development vocabulary, full of words like pedagogy and agency. People will think that I know what I'm talking about as I lecture on about the loss of the satchel culture and the movement of the Thai youth out of the villages and into the cities. And I may be the only person they ever talk to about these issues. So I'm their only source of information. But that puts a lot of responsibility on me. And I may seem like I know what I'm saying, and in some sense I do. I lived and worked in these places. I saw many of these issues firsthand, but I can by no means speak as an expert on these topics. We think we know everything about these people and these places, but there's no way we can ever see the full picture. I can't keep these secrets, these small issues in the global scheme, but big on a local level, that I don't know. I'm no expert on the globalization of the satchela, and I can't tell you exactly how many people are moving to cities instead of not in Thailand, but I will always have these stories and these secrets with me, even if they stay dormant for a while. With one you loved so long ago, now we don't even know his name. We were just in these places and these homes for a fleeting moment, just a few weeks in each country, although it could seem like a lifetime. But time moves on, and those family and those people we love so much will just become memories. For me and for the people I lived with, the same thing will happen. Ages come and go, and we may even forget the names of those who once touched our lives so deeply, but that's just how time goes. Ecuador seems like a million years ago, and I can feel the memories starting to slip from me already. Names are fading and stories are beginning to blur. But this year hasn't been like anything else I've ever done, and I'm more deeply affected by some of the people I've met this year than anyone before. So who knows if I'll remember them in the future. But right now they're fresh in my mind, and I'll continue to tell their stories for as long as I can. What a beautiful face I have found in this place that is circling all around the sun. The same line as before, but now I don't see myself as the beautiful face. I see all the people I've met and all the friends I've made along the way. I now know that I can't be the one who can change everything, like I once thought, but those who live in these communities can. Change comes from the inside, and those who have the agency to enact change in their communities are the real beautiful faces in this world. I'm lucky enough to have been able to meet so many people who do so many amazing things in the world that we live in. And when we meet on a cloud, I'll be laughing out loud. I'll be laughing with everyone I see. And maybe when I see these people again, we'll laugh at the times we once had together. We'll reminisce about the times the chicken in Ecuador attacked me, or when I got lost in India and had to call my host dad for help. We'll laugh about all the changes that have occurred in Thailand over the years and the amazing new medication for HIV in South Africa. I'll be laughing with everyone I see, because I've learned that no language or cultural barrier, no matter how large, can keep you from connecting with people. Can't believe how strange it is to be anything at all. This is my favorite line from the song, and probably from this whole album. I've thought about it often this year. I would think about it when I planted a tree that would soon feed people in Ecuador, when I looked out over Machu Picchu and saw how amazing that society once was, when I was finally able to cut rice at the same speed as my host mom in Thailand. I thought about it when there were no elderly in Cambodia, because they had all been killed. When one of my students in India finally understood multiplication. When one of the health workers in my township agreed to take in a boy with HIV, even though she had barely enough money to take care of herself. And I thought about it when I was lucky enough to see these things happen for myself. I can't believe how amazing, strange, and wonderful it is to be a person, or anything in this world, filled with incredible wonders and things. And I can't wait to see what the rest of it holds for me. Thank you. You can find it on Spotify.
How did you know that this was like the right POL for you? You kind of already said that.
Well,
I've seen both of them now. They're both really good.
Like when I was presenting the other one, like the final one that I had written and like everything was done, I was like really not feeling it when I read it. Like I was reading it to everyone. I just wasn't like happy with the words I was reading. Like even I wasn't interested. I could tell other people were getting bored, but like I was getting bored with myself too. So I was just kind of like, I can't present this in front of people who like came here to see what I had learned and what I had experienced and read them something that was even boring myself. So I started it.
This one seems much more of you.
Yeah, I'm glad you changed.
Yeah, me too.
Do you think like having that experience of like that little crisis and then changing your entire thing influenced the way you like think about what you learned over this trip?
Yeah, I think I was trying to force something out of me that wasn't there. And I was trying to kind of like come up with like these grand things that I had learned when like I'd learned a lot, but I just wasn't putting them down. So I was like fighting to come up with stories and stuff, but like this flowed much more naturally. I wrote this in like 2 days and the other one took me 2 weeks. So yeah, definitely.
That one seemed like it was more from your head. And I agree.
Yeah.
One of the things I admire most about the presentation is, hey, what's up? One of the things I admire most about the presentation is how you mentioned that despite your experiences, you acknowledge that you are by no means an expert on a topic, which I think takes a lot of humility to talk about. How do you think you can encourage other people to maintain that open-mindedness about world experiences?
I don't know. Well, one time I read this article and it said that the best way to like ruin someone's argument, that if like they were arguing against you, was to like question them really deeply, like make them think about things like all the way to the core and just keep asking questions and never like letting them like say a fact. Like you have to keep asking questions, and that was the best way to destroy an argument. And maybe not doing that because like it's kind of mean to people, but like like making people realize that like I stayed with one indigenous family in one community in Ecuador. I don't know what it's like to live in a city in Ecuador. I don't even know what it's like to live like in the same different Satchela community. I just know about like this one small piece. So just like making sure people understand that there's much more to a story than just the part that you're seeing of it.
How do you think that thinking beyond borders helped you see the issues you were facing in a broader sense? Knowing that you can only experience, 6 months is a long time.
Yeah.
You can only have so many experiences in 6 months.
I mean,
The reading, the program.
They make it pretty clear from the beginning that like we're only staying with one family and one community, and like just that sense that like, and the PLs and everyone else in the group and the communities we were with really questioned us and pushed us to make sure that we realized that we didn't know the answers. Like one of the first things that we learned was like TBD's principles of teaching and learning or something was to like never stop questioning the answers. So even that having that principle makes me and I think all of my peers realize that there's no solid answer to the questions that we're learning about here.
You talked about at the beginning of this experience how you went into it, he changed the world.
Right, yeah.
I'm thinking away now that you're realizing that maybe it's not that easy and whatnot. Are you disappointed that you can't change all aspects, or what's your view now?
I mean, I think at first I was disappointed because I like had all these high hopes and all of this stuff. But now I kind of realized that it was not really right of me to think that way, to think that I could go in and change things. Like coming from the outside and only staying in these places for a short while, like it was, I don't want to say ignorant, but like it was pretty ignorant of me to think that way because I didn't really understand how things worked on a much deeper level. But I mean, I do think it's possible to make change, and I do think that you can, but I don't think it comes in the way that I once thought it did.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier in the presentation about how some things are universal beyond culture and language.
Yeah.
Things like laughter, and like, what are some other quintessential universal characteristics that you think bond us based on your experiences in these various locations?
That's a tough question. Well, I definitely think like a sense of community is really important, and a sense of family. And maybe that was because I was just staying with families, but everywhere I went, like we were very welcomed and like shown that we were part of a community. Even, well, sometimes we were seen as very much outsiders. Like it was very clear everywhere we went that we weren't from around there, but we still were able to like, in some sense, integrate into these communities and these families. I don't know. I think, well, I don't know. I don't know. I think there are a lot of things in a lot of different places. But I think one binding sense is us. Like I stayed in a family in Ecuador, and then in Thailand, and then in India and South Africa. Like, and now I'm able to connect those stories and see like the similarities in people. And I think, human nature is a thing. We all make mistakes. We all, mess up sometimes, but we also are. I do think that like we're all good intentioned, and we do all like have good hearts or souls or whatever.
Like,
Thank you. Oh yeah.